So I have a new habit of reading book. So every time I read book in my Kobo e-reader, but that applies to any Kindle or any other ebook reader, my way of reading a book is basically I take a lot of time. I really don't like speed reading because I'm not capable of speed reading, and I have to read it slowly to understand everything. Anyway, before I go any further and talking about anything else, just to give you an idea, this video about a book that I recently have read. It's a small book, but very old one. It's called The Prince, which is basically written by Machiavelli. Now, how do I know about the Machiavelli? Because I've been reading about a book called The Law of Human Nature, where Robert Greene constantly talk about Machiavelli. Not constantly, but he does use a lot of examples of him when it comes to power play. Now, of course, when I was reading that book, I didn't even finish it yet. I have really a lot to read. I kind of think that if he's using Machiavelli a lot in his books, I should actually read that first to get an idea about who he is and what it's about. Now, I finished the book, the translated version of the original Italian, which calls Il Principe, I think. Now, every time I read a book, I try to take notes. That's how a lot of people does. And I try to for myself, try to write down a brief summary of it, like an university assignment. And in this one, I actually did write like a little briefing of the whole book about, and I'm going to post it in my blog post. I'm not going to publicize my blog in this video, but I'm going to read out loud what I've written, like a student in the classroom. So hear me out. And if you don't understand any of my word, my accent, please do let me know. And I will also post the whole blog thingy in the description below. So you don't need to really click on my any links. I mean, I don't like it. That's a separate project. Now, there you go. So in the introduction, basically I tried to write down who he is. Who is Machiavelli? What is the book about? The Prince by Niccolò Machiavelli is one of the most widely read and influential books on politics and leadership ever written. Published in 1532, the book provides a pragmatic and often ruthless guide to gaining and maintaining political power. While the book has been controversial since its publication, it continues to be studied and discussed by scholars and leaders around the world. In the blog post, because I literally wrote down in this blog post, it will explore what we can learn from the Prince and how its lesson can be applied or not in real life. Because as you can see, that's a very formal way that I've written, so I'm reading it out loud what I've written. But what I want to do in this little blog post, which is that, of course, to let you know that it is a very manipulative power play book where you can learn a lot of things, which will help you to understand other people who is doing the same thing. Could be good, could be bad. You know what I mean? So that at least it's like a warning sign that be careful. If you're seeing any of those things, be careful. But that being said, you also have a lot to learn from that book. Now, the one point I've written, that there's altogether 5 of them. First thing, which is the book is about the importance of leadership. The Prince emphasizes the importance of strong and effective leadership in politics and beyond. Machiavelli argues that a successful leader must be willing to make tough decisions, even if they are unpopular or morally questionable. While many people find this approach of leadership troubling, there is no doubt that Machiavelli's ideas have influenced countless leaders throughout the history. I mean, Think about it. Being a leader is not like a fairy tale. We get a big salary and you have all the benefits in the country. You can be a leader of a CEO of a company, or a president of a country, or a general of an army, or just a boss of your needle restaurant. Who knows? Now, in a society, we kind of have this thing that, bosses are good, bosses are bad, and employees are good. And think about it, the bosses and the leaders have to take decisions that can hurt people in order to make sure the bigger picture, the country or a company, survives and continues to do what it does. And it doesn't have to be a fairy tale or rainbow and a unicorn. Sometimes it's ruthless, it's harsh, it can hurt people, but sometimes it's necessary. So that makes me wonder, makes me think that I actually should learn more about history, because in the history lesson, we always see that the leaders have been taking so many harsh decisions, even though they don't like it, but they realize that it's necessary to do what needs to be done. Now, number 2 point is that the role of morality. What does it mean? One of the most controversial aspect of The Prince is Machiavelli's apparent disregard for traditional moral values. Don't hurt people, don't lie, etc., etc. He argues that successful leader should be willing to do whatever is necessary to maintain power, including, wait for it, lying, cheating, and even killing. While this may seem shocking to many readers, it is important to remember that Machiavelli lived in a time of political, upheaval and instability, and his ideas should be understood in their historical context. Now, exactly what I am about to say, I'm just basically going to paraphrase of the paraphrase that I've written. In the book, he did mention those horrible things needs to be done to maintain power. So remind you, that was written in the time when this kind of thing was totally normal. It happens today, but today we are living in a sugar-coated society. In a sugar-coated society, we didn't say this kind of thing out loud. We just do it and have a smile on the face. You can see it everywhere, this kind of hypocrisy. So today, we kind of don't talk about it, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening. Now, number 3 point of this book is that strategy and tactics. The Prince is also a guide of effective strategy and tactics in politics and war. Machiavelli stressed the importance of being flexible and adaptable, as well as the need to stay ahead of one's enemies. This idea about military strategy and tactics has been studied by military leaders for centuries and continue to be relevant today. In everything in life, including the boxing, any sports, any kind of fight, any kind of, the society is basically a war. It's a war zone. Like it or don't like it, it sounds exaggerating, but you always have to negotiate with your boss, you always have to negotiate with your colleagues, you always have to negotiate with the government all the time. And trust me, this is a social war with a smile on the face, with the polite words. And in this kind of war, even in real life, you need to make sure that you know what are you talking about. You should know almost, or if not everything, about the person in the opposite side of the table. When you're looking at the eyes, talking to that person, you should know everything about that person before even you open your mouth. And definitely, war doesn't mean that you're fighting with that person. You always have to debate with absolute logical vocabularies and facts and statistics to make sure that you are winning. Sometimes you should know when to step down, step back, and think, and then come forward. Don't just fight just for the honor at all. Now, this book is also about, number 4, human nature. One of the key themes of the Prince is the study of human nature. Machiavelli argues that human beings are fundamentally selfish and power-hungry, and the successful leaders must understand and manipulate these instincts in order to succeed. While this view of human nature may be cynical, it is important to remember that Machiavelli was writing at a time when politics was often brutal and violent. But let's be honest, is it really any nicer than the past? I mean, in history, everything was visible. Today, it's kind of protected by media from every side. Today you have a media which is their voice of each political party that kind of do the job for them with a polite word, with the laws and regulations. So you have to really learn how to read between the lines. So therefore, every time somebody is giving you compliments, you need to understand that why that person is giving you compliments. Is it actually because you deserve it, or it just to, calm you down and kind of give you a good impression in order to potentially harm you later while you are at your most vulnerable and fragile state. So this book is one of them, so you should learn that from that context. Now, number 5 points is the limits of power. Despite his emphasis on the importance of power, Machiavelli also recognized the limits of what a leader can achieve. He argues that even the most powerful ruler is ultimately subject of the whims of the fortune and fate, and that success can never be guaranteed. This humility is an important reminder that even the most successful leader must be prepared for the unexpected. Well, everything has a limit. Everything, so you should know I apply that all the time in my own life. The most important practice that I do all the time is that I believe that I know my limit, and I believe that I always looking more of my limits, because more you know about your limits, not the strong points of yours, but if you know more about your limits, you can always work on it while try to avoid it while you are in action, so that when you are discussing with someone about something important, in your mind you know that you shouldn't do something because that's not your strong point, so you should avoid it. And most importantly, don't let that person know about that your weak point of view. Nobody. That belongs to you and only to you. Now, finally, the conclusion. While The Prince is a controversial and often challenging book, it continues to be studied and debated by scholars and leaders around the world. Its lessons about leadership, power, and human nature are as relevant today as they were in 16th century. While it is important to approach Machiavelli's ideas with caution and critical thinking, there is no doubt that The Prince remains a timeless guide to the complexities of leadership and power. And there, my friend, are the little bit summary of Machiavelli, the book The Prince. Very important book if you want to kind of, survive in this society from every aspect of life. I'm going to put that summary in the description below, so don't worry about it. And if you don't understand what I said, just go to the description and read it. And if you have anything to add, please do engage in the description, in the comment section below, because this video is not just about getting views and whatever. I don't really care. I really want to talk about books because I miss talking about books with another human being for a very long time because of a busy life. So I thought that, discussing book makes us more intelligent. So please do engage, and I'm looking forward to hear from you. Look after yourself, and bye-bye.